So what's on tap? We're going to look back at events from the previous month, including the World 10-Ball Championship, where Spain's Francisco Sanchez Ruiz was gunning for his third world title in 9 months. We'll take a look at the Women's Professional Billiards Association Fairfield Invitational, and we'll look at the Premier League pool event that took place in London. We'll also look ahead at the upcoming World Pool Masters. We've got a sit-down with Matchroom pool boss lady Emily Frazer, and we've got a couple other special guests lined up today. So buckle up and get ready for this episode of Billiards Digest Live. Good afternoon, pool lovers. I'm Mike Pinozzo, editor and publisher of Billiards Digest, and once again, we're coming to you live from the American Pool Players Association studio. Got another great show for you, and we're going to start where we left off last month, and that was on the eve of the Predator World 10-Ball Championship at the Rio All-Suite Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. 128 players from around the globe chalked up in the $226,000 event, including defending champion Wojciech Swajek of Poland and former winners brothers Pin Yi Ko and Ping Chung Ko from Taiwan and Eklund Kachi from Albania. American hopes, of course, rested on the shoulders of Captain America, Shane Van Boening. And actually, Van Boening struggled in several matches in Las Vegas, including a match against Canadian Martin Daigle. Van Boening was forced to fight back from a 7-4 deficit and looked to be sunk at 7-7 before the pressure got to Daigle and the Canadian inexplicably rattled the 9-ball, allowing Van Boening to close out the match, although he needed a gutsy bank on the final 10 to do so. Still, Van Boening reached the quarterfinals where he lost to Eklund Kachi, but not before playing his round of 16 match under the watchful eye of podcast giant and pool fan Joe Rogan, who also took in a Fedor Gorst match, did some match commentary on the live stream, and even interviewed Gorst tableside after one of his matches. But at the Rio, all eyes were on Spain's Francisco Sanchez Ruiz. The 31-year-old was entering uncharted waters in Las Vegas. Already the reigning world champion in 9-ball and 8-ball, Sanchez Ruiz was shooting for a near miraculous one-year Triple Crown. Not only has no other player even earned a career Triple Crown, but Sanchez Ruiz is the first player to even have a shot at achieving it in a 12-month period. Two other players, Ping-Yi Ko and Wu Sha-Xing, held 2 of the 3 titles in the same year, but the 3rd title wasn't competed for in those particular years. At the World 10-Ball Championship, Sanchez Ruiz actually suffered a loss in the qualification stages, losing to Lee Van Corteza of the Philippines 8-3 in the 3rd round. Sanchez Ruiz bounced back to win his next match and earn a spot in the single elimination Final 32. And from there, the Spaniard beat Canada's Alex Pagulayan, Taiwan's Yunling Chang, and Indonesia's Aloysius Yap to reach the semifinals. And that set up the event's marquee matchup, the one every fan had been hoping for. The unstoppable Sanchez Ruiz against 22-year-old sensation Fedor Gorst. The Russian immigrant, now living in Indiana, rolled through the event to reach the semifinals, and his match against Sanchez Ruiz did not disappoint. The epic battle was nip and tuck throughout, and leading 8-7, Gorst escaped a Sanchez Ruiz safety with a jump shot on the 5, only to find himself hooked on the 6th. Undaunted, Gorst jumped a 6 into the side, and ended up hooked on the 7. Still with jump cue in hand, Gorst jump banked to 7, only to watch the cue ball roll up the table and into the corner pocket for a scratch. Amazing run of shots. Not surprisingly, the match came down to a single rack, and Sanchez Ruiz once again tied Gorst in knots, pinning him down with 2 fouls. Gorst's kick on the 4 ball was pure, too good in fact, and the cue ball once again found its way into the corner pocket, this time costing Gorst the match on 3 consecutive fouls. Brutal ending. Now, the only thing standing between Sanchez Ruiz and the Triple Crown was 24-year-old Albanian man-child Eklund Kaci. The 2021 World 10-Ball champion also lost a match in the preliminary rounds, falling to Ping Chung Ko 8-3. But after earning his way back to single elimination stage, Kaci was unstoppable, winning 4 straight matches, including a 10-7 win over Van Boning in the quarterfinals and a 10-8 win over Joshua Filler of Germany in the semifinals. In the title match, Sanchez Ruiz raced out to a 5-1 advantage and looked in control until a single miss seemed to turn the entire match around. Slowly, methodically, Kaci kept Sanchez Ruiz seated during a 7-game streak to forge an 8-5 lead. Sanchez Ruiz managed to split the next 4 games, but Kaci sealed his 2nd world title with a 10-8 victory, ending the Spaniard's hope of that magical Triple Crown. Kaci and Sanchez Ruiz were joined on the medal podium by Gorst and Filler. Van Boning, Yap, Ping Chung Ko, and Estonia's Dennis Grabe rounded out the final 8. The women pros were next up with the Women's Professional Billiard Association Fairfield Invitational at the Fairfield Arts and Convention Center in Fairfield, Iowa. A 48-player field turned out for the first WPBA Tour event of the year, with a number of top European and Asian players on hand, including Kelly Fisher and Alison Fisher, Bulgaria's Kristina Zlateva, and Taiwan's Zhu Shenwei. The field did include a sizable U.S. contingent, and several unexpected names found their way into the top 8, including former tour titleist Monica Webb and 13-year-old Savannah Easton. After losing her 2nd match, an 8-3 beating at the hands of top-ranked Kelly Fisher, Easton rebounded by winning 5 consecutive winner-go-home matches before losing to Zlateva 8-6. Easton and Webb finished tied for 7th. The top 6 spots, not surprisingly, were gobbled up by the event's international contingent. Zlateva and Belarusian Margaret Fefilova-Steyer tied for 5th place, with Russian-born Kristina Tkach placing 4th. Recent WPBA Tour champion Wei earned a spot on the podium with her 3rd place finish, her only losses coming at the hands of Alison Fisher, first in the winner's bracket semifinals, 8-3, and again in the loser's bracket finale by the same 8-3 margin. Allison Fisher, meanwhile, posted another solid performance, losing only to Kelly Fisher, 8-6 in the winner's bracket final and 10-7 in the title match. It marked Allison's fifth runner-up finish in the past 2 years and her second in 2023, having lost to Sheshu Chow in the women's 9-ball world championship in February. For Kelly Fisher, the Fairfield win was her first in 3 outings in 2023, having posted fifth-place finishes in the World 9-Ball Championship and in the Alpha Las Vegas Open. She sprinted undefeated to the Fairfield title, her toughest test coming in an 8-7 win over American Janet Atwell in the 4th round. Fisher had won 7 events in 2022, en route to arguably her best year of her career. Now, let's move on to the Morningside Arena in Leicester, England, where 16 hand-selected players from around the globe competed in Matchroom's Premier League pool. The 2-table, no-audience, made-for-TV event was a multiple-stage round-robin format played out over 8 days. Now, follow me if you can here, because it's complicated. It started with each player playing all 15 competitors in races to 5 over the first 5 days, at which point the bottom 6 points earners, based on wins, losses, and racks won and lost, were dropped from the competition. Over the next 3 days, the remaining 10 players played one another. And after 9 matches, the bottom 4 were dropped, leaving just 6 players. Again, the 6 players engaged in round-robin play, with the bottom 2 players dropped, creating a final 4. From there, the final 4 was traditional race to 7, with the number 1 seed playing the number 4 seed, number 2 playing number 3, with the winners meeting in a single race finale. You still with me? The field was an eclectic mix, with 2 women, Taiwan's Sheshu Chow and South Korea's Seo, along with 17-year-old Saudi Arabian junior champion Khalid Al-Ghamdi and British highlight reel Chris Melling also in the mix. The U.S. was represented by 3 players, Shane Van Boening, Skylar Woodward, and Earl Strickland. And as you can see from the standings, Strickland won just 4 of 15 matches, but he didn't disappoint in the theatrics department. After 1 miss in his match against Francisco Sanchez Ruiz, Strickland moaned to the referee, "I wish he would sit still. I miss because I keep looking at him." The referee responded that Sanchez Ruiz wasn't moving at all, to which Strickland replied, "I know, but I think he's going to move." Only Earl Strickland. The Mercurial American also caught grief on social media after rebuffing Seo's request for a hug after their match, saying, "You don't want to hug me. I'm bad luck." Van Boening and Woodward fared slightly better, being eliminated in the second stage, each with 13 wins in 24 matches. But in the end, the PLP turned into just another Francisco Sanchez Ruiz benefit, with the Spaniard securing the top seed for the Final 4 with 22 wins in 29 matches. He was joined by Jason Shaw, Japan's Naoki Oi, and Bosnia-Herzegovina's Sanjin Pelivanovic. Shaw defeated Pelivanovic 7-4 in one semi, while Sanchez Ruiz topped Oi 7-3 in the other. In the title match, Sanchez Ruiz claimed the $20,000 top prize with a 7-4 win over Shaw. So, now that you're caught up on what's happened the past month, let's look at what's on tap. And we'll start with the upcoming World Pool Masters, which is Matchroom's premier invitational event. The 2023 event will take place May 10th through the 13th at Brentwood Centre in Essex, England. And it will be the 29th edition of the Masters. This year's winner will take home a tidy $40,000. It's single elimination, races to 9 up to the semifinals, which are races to 11, and the title match is a single race to 13. Shane Van Boening, who won back-to-back Masters titles in 14 and 15, will be the lone U.S. representative in the field. Van Boening is one of 5 players to have won the title twice. The all-time leader in Masters titles is German legend Ralph Souquet, who, believe it or not, has reached a title match 8 times and has 6 titles. The Masters always features a broad international field. It's a stacked lineup with defending champion Joshua Filler, Jason Shaw, Albin Aushin, Pin Yi Ko, and Francisco Sanchez Ruiz headlining the 2023 event. If you're looking for favorites this year, the obvious choice is Spain's Francisco Sanchez Ruiz. The Masters is about the only title he hasn't won in the past 12 months. Poland's Viktor Zielinski and former champions Albin Alshin and Filler would also be fancied options. How about Fedor Gorst? For all his talent and acclaim, Gorst has not been treated well on the Matchroom stage. He lost his second round match in both of the previous Masters appearances and has only one finish better than 33rd place in the past 3 U.S. Opens. Odds makers will probably still list him higher than his history would suggest. Now, if you're looking for a dark horse, Syrian refugee Mohamed Selfi might be your choice. The World Pool Championship runner-up is getting chances to compete on the big stage now, and as he showed in Poland, he's not flustered by the bright lights or the big moments. For more about the upcoming World Pool Masters and all things that are Matchroom Pool, let's bring in the architect of Matchroom's ever-increasing pool calendar, Matchroom Multisport COO, Emily Frazer. Good afternoon, Miss Emily. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Just got World Pool Masters plans, UK Open plans, Mosconi Cup plans.
Good afternoon, Miss Emily. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Just got World Pool Masters plans, UK Open plans, Mosconi Cup plans. Every single plan sitting at my desk at the moment. So it's all about arena designs.
You must feel like an interior designer.
Oh, do you know what? Absolutely love it. You look at it and go, because it's not like a boxing ring where
Right.
it's the same boxing ring in the center of the
Right.
arena. You know, I think what we're really strong at and what we're really good at is arena designs. That's why when the players walk in and they look around like they're a kid in Toys R Us,
Yeah.
or, you know, a toy shop, it's because we're so good at that kind of designing, and yeah, we get a buzz out of it. So it's but we got to try and pull back a bit of costs as well at the same time. Can't be spending too much. So that's what I'm doing. I go through with my little red marker and just saying, no, we got to cut this, we got to cut
this,
that.
cut that. Right. So we've been talking about the Premier League pool event, and we've been talking about the upcoming World Pool Masters. And explain to me, to us, the difference between the two and how you approach them. They look kind of similar because they're, invitational, individual events, but they're very different. How do you play one off the other?
Yeah, and you don't realize until you're actually coming about it and you're looking at what the lineup is. And that's why I love the team that we have, because we're always thinking on our feet. We had the Premier League pool and the event afterwards, the World Pool Masters, both 16-player fields. We purposely changed the World Pool Masters to a 16-player event because we are trying to follow the model of the snooker, where it is the top 16 in the world. It's not just here because there's a broadcaster in that territory, or, it's all of the previous champions or anything like that, or an odd wild card. It should be the best players in the world, and it should be the toughest one to win. That's why we've increased the prize money. It's the $40,000 up front for first place.
Right.
But we obviously looked at Premier League pool and gone, oh gosh, it's the same amount of players. So we took the approach of, okay, World Pool Championship was the cutoff for the qualifying criteria for the World Pool Masters. Top 14 off of the rankings came into that with 2 wild cards.
Right.
And we've given that to China and the Philippines spot. Now, we basically took the approach to the Premier League pool and went, okay, so who's not in the World Pool Masters who probably kind of should have been? And also, who are our top players? You've got to have a world number one. You've got to have the likes of Albin in there. You've got to have the likes of Josh Filler, who did actually decline in the end. And so we tried to give an opportunity for the rest of the field, for players who wouldn't normally have the event, the opportunity. And the great thing about Premier League pool, it's the race to 5 formats. And we saw it with, obviously, I caught with Rita and Socia, obviously on the two ladies that we invited to the event. They get an opportunity because it's in this race to 5 format. So that's the approach that we took. It was 183 or 186 matches total for the event. And you've got viewers tuning in who are just watching relentless pool. So why do you want to see the exact same guys competing a couple of weeks later? It's in a different format. So we wanted to give Khalid the opportunity to come and play in this event. And one of the things that he took away from that was I got a lot more professional exposure from this. I knew how it felt to play the likes of Shane relentlessly, Albin, because they're not normally getting that. They're going to the open events and then busting out when you get to that last 64, last 32, when the seeding obviously all comes into play. So we tried to take that approach. You know, Naoki Oi didn't get a chance for the Whirlpool Masters, so that's why we looked at him. We did actually approach Efren Reyes for Premier League pool. We've been told he's no longer participating, you know, professionally, only in exhibitions. And that's why we gave Earl Strickland the spot as well. And Skylar Woodward, he wasn't going to have an opportunity. And someone like Sanjin Pelavanovic, who normally wouldn't have any real exposure. We've obviously launched the Balkan Pool Tour. That's really growing over in that territory. And it's somewhere where we'd like to host one of our Matchroom major events as well. So him coming into that event and actually being top of the table for a couple of days, one of the things that he came to us and took from that event was, I got the TV side of things. You know, it's not the big arena like normal, but they've got the interviews, they've got the cameras in their face when they're down on a shot. It's the experience. So we just created two different events, and I think it was fantastic that we adapted for that.
Yeah, no, they were both terrific, and they both do play different roles, which is kind of nice. Obviously, you know, you mentioned Skylar, you mentioned Earl. Our viewers, you know, they're totally dialed into Mosconi Cup, as is most of the pool world. So let's talk Mosconi Cup, and we'll start with the ranking system, because the first episode we had, I kind of butchered that a little bit and talked about the system being based on the 2-year rolling points, and it's not. It's based on 1 year. Explain the difference between the 2-year rolling points and the Mosconi qualifying points.
Oh gosh, yes. Yeah, you did butcher it a little bit there, Mike, but I don't think you asked, in all fairness. Look, first of all, Mosconi Cup tickets, they are on sale on the 27th of April. So first of all, Ali Pali, London, it's the first time that we're going to have a Saturday night for the Mosconi Cup. So we're going to be Wednesday the 6th till Saturday the 9th of December. Tickets are going on sale on the 27th of April. So just follow Matchroom Pool, sign up to the ticket alerts. There's a priority window. I know this will sell out. I've got the seating map here, all the ticket prices, all of the plans coming into play for this. It's going to be so spectacular. Now, that's kind of what we're focusing on at the moment. We're focusing on the arena. We're focusing on what the spectators are going to witness. Now, when we're talking about the players, the qualification, this has always been such a major part of the Mosconi Cup. Now, purely because we only run 3 events a year and there was nothing else to talk about. Now we're turning into, you know, you can compare it to the Ryder Cup for golf, where there's multiple events. Now, looking at this, it's quite interesting. You've got the 9-ball World Tour. So players qualify from the rankings. Now, we do have a rolling 2-year list. That means that January the 1st, 2022, we started the 9-ball world rankings. So everyone who participated in the ranking events from that date till now, until the end of this year, so it resets on the 1st of January 2024. That's a 2-year ranking list for all of the events except the Mosconi Cup.
Okay, so that's the only invitational event where the 2-year doesn't qualify you.
Correct.
Okay.
So the reason why that is the case is when we looked at it, We looked at who would be in the team from the start of this year. You already kind of knew because the prize money was so big that you would already know that Fran, Shane were already in the event. I mean, that's a bit boring, isn't it? So you allocate a 1-year money list.
Makes sense.
So for this year's Moscone, it's a 1-year money list. Now, I feel very sorry for the International Open because both the organizer and Jason Shaw is the winner, because that event has kind of fallen out of that. Purely because of the timing in the year, it makes a lot more sense to us to end the qualification criteria at the end of the US Open and allow the captains to do the wildcards. Now, what happened last year, Team USA actually picked their cards off of the International Open. Now, that was more behind the scenes. I probably communicated that, but it was a lot more behind the scenes. So it would make it unfair to keep that within the ranking structure still from the 1-year money list. So we made a decision that this year's 1-year money list does not include last year's International Open.
Okay.
However, this year's International Open will be counted for next year's 1-year ranking list. Yeah. So for anyone that's been communicated, just wasn't unsure, that's the reasoning behind it. We want to try and start as clear as possible. Players are aware of the qualification, and there's a bit of structure to it. We've spoken to Jason and explained the situation to him, and it's the right thing for us to do. And we just need to make sure that it's there for next year.
Right. So let's talk about the timeline for naming the captains. Europe is going to get a new captain. In the U.S., Jeremy's always kind of in limbo, right? And so, fill us in. When do you plan on doing that? And two, has the urgency to name the captain changed since you guys have developed a much more broad tour of points that lead up to it? I mean, before I think part of the reasoning for picking the captains early before was to have 9 months for him to work with the players and try to decide who should be on the team, because they didn't have a lot of body of work to choose from, right, as far as events. Mm-hmm. So how has that changed your timeline, and what is the timeline?
Yeah, it's interesting because before, like I said, we had the 3 events, and throughout the year, there wasn't any dialogue for the Moscone Cup. There was no, we're a promoter, and there's got to be, the Moscone Cup is the biggest event of our calendar. Of course, we're going to create a build-up of all throughout the year talking about the Moscone Cup, the announcement of the players. That's why we really locked down on who announced the players. I remember when I first came in, I think families were announcing the players before we were as the promoter. Which drove me absolutely crazy. But, we've got a really good structure in place now, and the players understand why we do it. So to talk about the captains, before, captains would ask for, an enormous amount of expenses to go and travel with these players. And, they'd pick a pool of 10 of them and say, I'm going to go work with them. I'm going to do this leading up to the events. And it made sense for how pool was structured back then. It doesn't make sense for that now. Our time and our investment is 9-ball ranking events. So coaches and captains don't need to be traveling to these events and telling the players, how to shoot or coaching them to be professional. That's not the case. I'm going to give you a great example, just because it's recent. The ranking event that Billy Thorpe won. So that was a ranking event, wasn't it? Yeah.
Correct.
Yes, sorry. There's so many now. That ranking event that he won, he turned around after, every time they win in a ranking event, I text them and say, good job, it's just how it is. And he said, I'm back in this. I want to go to the ranking events. Emily, is this a ranking event? Is this a ranking event? I'm not drinking. I haven't been home. I haven't done this. Now we don't need a captain to do that anymore. The ranking events are doing that. We've always known, and I've always been the most expressive about it. Team Europe are so much more structured and so much more what is the word? Disciplined than Team USA. Team
What I love
USA
about
always
Team
need,
USA.
like, oh, we love them to death. But Team USA always need that mum. And they kind of still a little. But I think because we're building a lot more ranking events now in the USA, that example that I've just spoken about, you know, recently with these events, we're building a lot more ranking events in the US. So you don't need that captain. The captain plays a really important role during the event and picking the wild cards. They play a really important role. So to be honest with you, it's not our priority right now. I'd much rather get another 12 ranking events to my schedule than, you know, talking with captains, doing that. To be fair, I probably in my mind already know who the captain's going to be, but
Really?
I just haven't executed. Yeah.
Share.
Because no, because it's just not the priority right now. The priority is the
It's priority for the guys who want to be captain.
Yeah, but I don't know. If I haven't done something, it probably means that I'm still on the fence about it.
Yeah.
If I'm 100% certain about something, I do it.
Okay.
If I don't, it means that there's a percentage in my mind I'm unsure about. So I've got an idea, but I'm probably just, you know, would like to have a brainstorm, chat about it in the office and see what our thoughts are.
So if you had to, you know, estimate the short list for each team's captain's pick, is it 3 people? Is it 5 people? Is it 4 people?
Look, the captains are going to be, as if I'm going to tell you, no, I'm not even shortlisting.
Okay. I don't even need to know the names, but are there like 3 people you're considering? Did 20 people send in resumes? You know, how does this all come about during the year?
So many people send in, you know, stuff, and I don't want to be rude because we don't reply yet because we haven't decided.
Yeah.
So it's not out of ignorance or, you know, that we're not going to respond. I love that people are saying, I want to be captain. I love it. Yes. Keep asking. Brilliant. But it's just not the priority right now. And, you know, when we feel ready to do it, then we will. But I've got a few names in my mind, and you know, I think Alex has already expressed that if we don't have anyone, then he would come back. So I mean, maybe we just scrap the captains. I don't know.
So the reason you haven't gotten back to my email is because you haven't gotten back to anybody's.
No.
Okay. So you did recently tease everyone with a head-to-head matchup that you've been dreaming about. Okay?
Oh,
give me a clue. Come on, what are we talking about here?
Okay, initially it was 1. Then when I wrote that post, by the way, 110% serious, that post. I know
Really?
everyone thinks that I'm kind of 110% serious.
Okay, now I'm
so
intrigued.
serious. It's kind of something that I want to do. I don't know. I don't know. Look, it's an idea that's been floating around. If anyone's going to do it, I think it should be us.
Is it like a Legends matchup? Is it what kind of format, what kind of idea are you thinking about? Without naming the players.
It's just, it should follow what our last 16 is in our open events, or when you get to the last 16 of the US Open, or the format for the Whirlpool Masters. That's what it should follow. Okay. But after posting that the other day, I've now got 3 matches I want to do.
Okay. Right. Is there a timeline on that?
I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Definitely one match this year.
Great. Okay. All right. So we appreciate your time. Stick around, though, because I want to come back to you on another hot topic that we're going to be discussing on this show. So don't go away, all right? Interesting stuff. As we mentioned, one of the bonuses with this year's Whirlpool Masters and upcoming international events is seeing Fedor Gorst back in action on the international stage. If you've followed Pro Pool over the past 2 or 3 years, you might be a little familiar with how slippery the international travel slope has become for players. It's become increasingly difficult and treacherous for international players to come into and leave the U.S. on travel visas. Several players, including Filipino stars Dennis Orcolo and James Aranis, ended up receiving 5-year bans from entering the U.S. because of visa violations. The tightening of the restrictions has international players petitioning for special status as elite athletes to make their travel smoother, including Russian-born stars Gorst and Kristina Tkach. Tkach began the process of getting a green card in 2021 and received her green card earlier this year. Gorst is in the process and recently cleared a major hurdle when he received Alien of Extraordinary Ability status from the U.S. Immigration Services. For more than a year, Gorst has not dared to leave the U.S. for international competition for fear of not being allowed to return. With his recent status victory, he can now travel freely abroad while waiting for his permanent resident status to come through. Now, joining me now in the studio to discuss this topic and a few others is APA Marketing Director Jason Bowman. Jason, good to see you.
Good to see you, Mike. Thanks for having me on the show. A lot of happenings early this year, 2023. It's quite the year for professional pool.
It has been a very busy first 3-4 months of this year, for sure.
Absolutely.
And this topic has been kind of simmering for the past year or so with visas and international players coming and going. And you know, part of this is certainly due to the fact that there's so many more tournaments on the calendar now. Right. So, and there's so much more at stake that players are crisscrossing the globe. But international players have come to the U.S. in the past, and it's never been this kind of problem. What do you see?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, you know, you turn on the news and you see this issue about immigration, any news channel you might watch, and
right.
So to see it kind of overflow into the pool world and be impacting our sport is certainly interesting. You mentioned Orcollo and Arenas and the fact that they can't get into the country, or they got here and were sent home. I think Orcollo actually missed his Hall of Fame banquet last year, right? I mean, a career achievement, and he can't make it in. And, you know, I know for guys like you and I, we've traveled internationally, and any time you go somewhere, you don't necessarily fear being stuck in limbo. But can you imagine, you know, being sent somewhere and not being able to get in and maybe having to go back? Or even in the case of like Fedor, you know, with his situation a little different with the Russian being a citizen of Russia and some of the challenges they have traveling. You know, the fact that if he were to leave here and maybe get stuck, you know, and really be in limbo, and where do you go? I know he doesn't want to go back home, at least right now.
Right.
So it's fascinating. You got two guys that can't get into the country. You had one guy that
can't get out.
leave the country right now. And then we've got another guy in Florian Kohler who just recently got the golden ticket, if you will, of American citizenship. And I know he's been one that's had to deal with a lot of the stuff as much as he travels internationally. So, you know, it's a fascinating topic. It really is.
It is, and it's interesting you bring up Florian. You know, he is one player who no longer has to worry about anything as far as traveling abroad. And so who better to talk to about his becoming a naturalized citizen than Florian himself. So Florian, let's bring him in. Florian, welcome. How are you doing?
Thanks. Well, good to see you, my friend, again.
Yeah,
doing all right.
Good to see you as well. So, you know, we've been discussing visa issues as they've related to players in the past couple of years. It's become a big issue. We've talked about players like Dennis Orcollo who've been banned for 5 years from coming into the U.S. because of alleged visa violations. And we've been talking about someone like Fedor Gorst who didn't dare leave the country in the past year for fear of visa issues. And here you are, recently received your full citizenship, naturalized citizen of the U.S. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about the journey from you know, visitor's visa to green card to full citizenship. What's that been about to you, and the reasons behind it?
Well, it's been a long process. I won't lie to you. You know, I see a lot of those guys, they go on the tourist visas, and that is never something that I was very comfortable with because you never know. I mean, you know, customs could be a little tricky, and it doesn't take much for you to be on the side. So, I mean, the very first few times I came to the U.S., I took a tourist visa, obviously, like everybody else. And then, you know, a couple times in, 3 times in, I'm like, this is not, you know, really the right way to do so. So, yeah, I talked to one of my friends, you know, / manager here, and we decided to put together the file for the O1 visa, which is
Right.
alien with special ability.
Correct.
And that's a pretty hefty file. I won't, this was, I remember my file was something like that big, hundreds and hundreds of pages. You got to go through quite a lengthy process, but then ultimately you end up I ended up in the Paris American Embassy. And, you go in person for an interview, and basically, the guy just Googled my name, see what the credentials were correct. And, actually we had APA helping me on that I think it may have been Jason actually, to put, a nice word in there. And, it ultimately worked out, right? So the O1 is pretty solid, lets you come in and out pretty much at free will without them asking you too many questions. Granted, it's still just a visa, it's nothing else, so you limit the time and stuff like that.
Right.
So after the first time, I had to renew it. So I think it may have been, probably 2 or 3 years in, then renew another 2 or 3 years in. And, I was about to renew it another time, and then my lawyer just says, you're pretty stupid, actually. You might as well just get married because you're with an American. And, I kind of refused to do that just for this. I had, some sort of pride, and I know it's a very common practice, but that's not really the way I wanted to do it. But I did do it, and then after that, you basically go into the green card, right?
Right.
Now the green card lets you in and out of the country once you have it, but there is a time frame, and that's the one that Fedor had the issue to, when you cannot leave the country, and it's very tricky because you are stuck and you're kind of in limbo, and it's not really 100% sure what you can do. So if your life is pretty straightforward, it's easy, but if you're traveling like we are, it's just it's pretty brutal.
Right.
So I had to go through that, but once you have the precious card, it's good. And then I think it's been 5 years. Once you have the green card for 5 years, you can apply for citizenship. And so that's what I did, and took probably about a year plus, something like that again. I will tell you that the application was much easier probably than all the previous ones we've done. And, I just got to go through an interview, learn a few things. It's a 100-question test that, you got to learn. It's not rocket science, but, it's pretty solid. And actually, I got myself into another kind of problem afterwards, because once you reach that milestone and you have this this interview, okay, then you got to go through the ceremony basically, and there they take your green card and they take pretty much every document that you had. So in my case, I had the ceremony, it was like 2 weeks ago, basically, or not even last week. That's 2 weeks ago, and I had a trip to go to Canada this week, which in my opinion, I was gonna just use my French passport, come in, come out. Unfortunately, they don't let you come in without the U.S. passport, because now you're a U.S. national, you need a U.S. document.
Right.
So that was kind of an adventure by itself. So I had to go to Denver, get a passport in like 4 hours, and I came back. But they did deliver, and I'll say for government services, it was pretty amazing actually. 4 hours time to drop the file, to get the passport in hand, and was able to do everything. So lots of hopes, but I think now I'm finally, like you say, I have the golden card.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So on the citizenship test, were there any pool questions?
No, but I'll tell you a funny thing. So I come into this place, and it's this Asian guy, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm Filipino. I came here later." And then he goes, "Oh yeah, Efren Reyes. We already looked you up." And I'm like, "Oh, well, that's gonna be easy." So I look at the lawyers, glance back, and I'm like, "Okay, so we should have no issue. Give me the 5 question." I think I was done in like 15 minutes, maybe.
Yeah, great. Great. So again, a lot of this discussion, centers around social media buzz around Fedor Gorst and someone, what do you think about, dual citizenship, people playing for very different countries? Is it something you think would be cool for Fedor to do? I mean, I don't think he'd get citizenship just to play in the Mosconi Cup, but it certainly could be one of the perks of it. And, would you consider playing under the U.S. flag in competitions going forward, things like that?
I mean, it's a very interesting conversation to have, because obviously you got some sort of loyalty to your own country,
Sure.
right? But technically, when you become American, you're to give up that. So I don't even believe they really consider dual citizenship. So technically, once you have the U.S. passport, in my opinion, you should be allowed to play for the U.S. As a matter if I would or not, I don't know. It's a tough question. I think after everything the U.S. has given me, probably, and I'm assuming Fedor would be probably the same, because that country definitely has given him a lot too. So I think in a way you got to kind of repay what's been given to you, and I think this is probably the way forward. Now, is this possible or not? Is this something Matchroom would consider? I don't know, as far as Mosconi Cup goes, but I know for me, if we still had the World Cup or trick shots event when it was Europe versus US, I would have had no problem personally playing for the US, because I think it's just, I've been there, 15 years now, so
Yeah.
it's quite a bit. It's almost nearly half my life, so I don't see why I should be, should be not playing for them.
Yeah, it's very interesting and it's a very cool perspective. I think that is really cool. Well, Florian, we really appreciate your taking the time to be with us. It was very enlightening to hear your story of how you've gotten through this and your opinions about it. So we thank you very much for joining us, and best of luck going forward. We'll see you soon.
Thanks so much, my friend.
Yeah, so some pretty fascinating insight into what at least one particular pool player has had to go through to finally get that citizenship. So, and the interesting thing in that interview, that your last question to him about, would you change sides, right? It's interesting because a lot of what you alluded to with the social media stuff related to Fedor was all these comments about, well, now he can play for USA. So I want to go real quick over to Becky in our social media center to talk a little bit, or at least show you guys what some of the social media reaction has been over the last few weeks.
Hey guys. Yeah, so over the last couple of weeks, we've definitely seen a lot about this on social media. So I thought that I would pull a couple of those comments and share them with you guys. The first one being from Eugene L. He says, USA attracts top pool talent, yet they don't represent Team USA in pool events and tournaments. Maybe Fedor will be an exception. The next one from David H. He says, good for him, but if he purchases a home in the States, he must play for Team USA in the Mosconi Cup. I don't know. We'll see. And then the last one we have says Tim K. from Tim K. He says, so he can start playing for Team USA soon, not Team Europe, hopefully. I guess only time will tell.
We need to start a GoFundMe page so Fedor can buy a house as soon as possible here in the States.
I'll kick in.
Yeah, no, it is interesting, Mike, because if you think about it, and it's not necessarily unprecedented with the Mosconi Cup, not necessarily with the players, but with the captains. A couple years ago, you had Johan Reisink. He had been the team captain for Team Europe several years, I think 4 Mosconi Cup titles. Right. He moves to Team USA in 2017, and if you remember, a lot of folks were not happy about that development. Until he brought us 2 cups, and the only 2 cups we've had in like the last 12 years. So it's happened before, and it's certainly nice to dream about what that Team USA Mosconi Cup lineup might look like with a Fedor Gorst in it.
Yeah, when you get you put Fedor up there as a 1 and 1A with Shane, and you've got a Sky Woodward and then a Billy Thorpe and a Tyler Steyer. I mean, you can get your team up to snuff pretty quickly. And so, I think a lot of people on social media are having fun with that side of it and saying, it'd be great if he played, if he lives here, he should be playing for us and things like that. I think, of course, we'd all want homegrown talent to help us become the dominant team in this format. But it's fun stuff to look at and interesting possibilities in the future, right?
Oh man, I just can't imagine a Team USA with Fedor Gorst, Shane Van Boening, like you said, 1 and 1A. It's like baseball, right? You've got your rotation with your top 5, and you got 2 number 1 starters. Makes things a whole lot easier at the end of the day when you got 2 guys like that at the top of the lineup.
It does. And it's so difficult for players to get onto Team Europe these days. We may see an influx of Europeans coming over here looking for citizenship.
Well, we've got Jason Shaw living in the States. He's been here a while. I think he's got a pool room up in the Northeast. So maybe there's some others we can bring on board too if we get this going. But the other big thing would be not just putting him on Team USA, but potentially taking him off of Team Europe.
Yes.
Because that's the last thing Team USA fans want to see is Fedor Gorst back on that team. I know he played in 2020, but we haven't seen him since. And,
they avoided him last year. That was a little controversial as well, but they avoided him last year. But it's he's going to be up there.
Yeah, so it's definitely fun to think about what might be.
It is. And of course, all this discussion does revolve around Fedor Gorst. So let's find out from him what he thinks of the whole situation. How are you, Fedor?
Hello, Mike. How are you?
Good. So we've been talking a lot about the whole visa issue that is affected so many players. So many players are trying to get through this. You're obviously at the forefront of this discussion. The big news for you coming earlier this month when you received your I-140 Alien of Extraordinary Ability, which is a great term for you, status, which allows you to use that travel authorization that you received now. So now you can travel overseas for events. That had to be, a real weight off your back, right?
Yes, I mean, it feels amazing, and it's been over a year. I mean, the whole process, I started with what's called the change of status. I came here on my travel visa and decided that I want to stay longer. And what I did first, I changed my travel status to a working status. And then after I got that part done, I decided that I want to get a green card, because what happened was, if I was flying out of the country with my working status, I had to renew my American visa, and I didn't want to take a risk going to American embassy overseas, because there was a high chance of me not getting the visa and not coming back to the United States, and I didn't want to be stuck anywhere else. So I decided to apply for a green card in the country, which meant that I couldn't fly out of the country once the process is done, and we had to apply for so many different forms and get the support from so many people, including you and a lot of different companies in the industry. But it definitely worth doing the whole.
It paid off. So once you got that authorization and then you got the upgraded status, you must be like Travelocity's best customer right now, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm really looking forward to this year, especially. I'm flying out of the country tomorrow already, so I'll check if I can fly internationally or not. We'll see.
Yeah. You've already had to start getting into visa applications, I would imagine, now for some of the foreign trips you're going to make. Has there been any hiccups along that way, or things seem to be going pretty smoothly?
That's actually what I did the whole day today. I woke up at like 6:30 a.m. and I went to do the biometry for my UK visa that I'm applying to do. So the process is pretty simple. You just do the biometry in one of the offices, and then you just ship the passport with all the documentation to UK embassy in New York, and they just ship it back to you if it's it's approved or not.
Great. Well, I'm sure everyone's looking forward to seeing you at a lot of these big international tournaments, except your competitors, I'm sure. But one of the things I'm curious about is that you haven't seen your family for almost a year and a half, right? I would imagine that you still want to avoid going into Russia. So is your family able to leave Russia? Is there a possibility of you meeting them somewhere in Europe and spending time together?
No, everybody can leave the country, but we will just have to pick the country without any visa restrictions. So we will probably meet somewhere in Turkey or somewhere nice to spend a week or two.
Great.
Probably in July. I'm looking forward to that.
So obviously this is no news to you. One of the big topics we've seen, on social media since all this news came out was Fedor Gorst for Team USA, right? So has that been a fun thing for you to watch?
I mean, I really appreciate the support of people, and I understand the reasoning behind what people are trying to say when they want me to play for Team USA.
There you go. Look, you're already suited up and ready to go.
Yeah, I'm ready. You don't even see my boots here, so I do have cowboy boots here as well.
Perfect. Me too. We can be brothers. So, it's a fun thing to talk about, and we've talked to, Emily about, does Matchroom even have provisions for that at this point? But, all that is predicated in most sports on being a naturalized citizen. And, you would get the green card, which is one thing, but you wouldn't go all through the hassle of becoming a naturalized American citizen just to play in the Mosconi Cup, right? It would be because you want to have dual citizenship and be a citizen of the U.S. Is that something you've thought about? Is it something you really have given serious consideration to in the long term? I mean, you're a young kid. You've got a lot of years ahead of you. Where are you going to stay?
No, I do give it a consideration because with the American passport, it will be much easier for me to travel overseas because right now, anywhere I go, UK, Asian countries, European countries, I have to apply for a visa every time I go to, and that visa gives me a certain time that I can stay in the country, and I have to renew visas, and it's just a hassle traveling. And with the pool player schedule, I think it will be really, really tough to apply for different visas, especially at the same time. So I
Yeah.
think it will be smart for me to get a
Could you
American passport for that reason. One of the reasons
Yeah.
would be to get the passport just for the traveling reasoning.
Could you see living here for a long time?
Sorry, Mike?
Could you see living in the U.S. for a long time?
Well, I already lived here for 14 months, so it's long enough. It's not like I will be living in one place for a long, long time. You know, I'm always traveling.
Yeah.
If you look at the schedule this year, I'm going to UK twice in 1 month, and Spain, Philippines, Croatia, Turkey, and that's just 2 months. I mean,
Yeah.
coming back to US.
So it's just some place to unpack and do laundry.
Yeah, if I'm lucky.
Yeah, if you're lucky. So what's the one sign that you've become American?
What's the one sign that I become American?
Yeah. What trait have you picked up that's unique to Americans that now you do?
I don't know. I put butter everywhere now.
Well, we appreciate your taking time to be with us, and wish you continued success. Can't wait to see you playing in the tournaments overseas and snapping a few off.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
Okay, we'll talk again soon.
Yep, see you soon.
Well, he didn't close the door on anything, and if he's putting butter on everything, I feel like he should get immediate eligibility.
That's
We should
classic.
get Matchroom on the phone right now.
That's classic. Well, we will, because while he's not, he's keeping the possibilities open. The thought is, what about Matchroom? Have they thought about this possibility now, and do they actually have eligibility requirements in place for the Mosconi Cup? So let's go ahead and bring Emily back and find out. So Emily, you heard us talking about Fedor Gorst and the clamoring in the U.S. for him to be on Team USA. And most of it's fun, but it kind of does beg the question. This is kind of new territory for Matchroom as far as people semi-seriously talking about, a dual citizenship being able to get you onto another team. Have you guys talked about this much? Do you brush it off? Have you looked at what other sports do? Is this something you're actually going to look into in the future?
Yeah, it's never been something that we've needed to address before. I know that in my sort of 10 years sort of being here, there's been names that have been thrown around, and they're not citizens in that country, for instance, and about swapping from Team USA to Europe or vice versa. But it's never really been serious. I think that now, obviously, the talks around Fedor and him having citizenship is now going to obviously spark us having to seriously think about this. Like I said, we haven't thought about it before seriously.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be now. I mean, Fedor Gorst for president, right? I think that's what was being that was going around on social media. Look, I'm really excited to have him at the World Pool Masters. It's going to be brilliant to have him back and him be in that atmosphere. I hear that he's literally creating a Matchroom arena at home to practice for the World Pool Masters. I mean, that's how special these events are for him.
Yeah.
And I love that he's back. And I love the support that he's had from especially the US side of the supporters. I think it's brilliant. So, you know, when we see everything, we're listening to everything, we're watching everything. I know people think that we probably don't and we ignore stuff. We literally see everything,
Right.
and we are taking this on board, and it's something that we are going to discuss in-house and basically see if there's a structure that we can enforce for moving forward. So that our aim at the end of the day is to give our aim that has been for the last couple of years is to create structure, transparency, and a journey for the players. So that means a lot of things. That's not just prize money. It's not just ranking events. That's structure to get into the main shows as well. So definitely it's on our list, and we need to have a look at it.
Well, I mean, you know, you want the event to be even more competitive. And so, you know, from that standpoint, you probably can't wait for Fedor to get his U.S. citizenship, right?
Well, I just think the ranking events are key in the US. And, you know, there's a lot of talk. We are a British promoter, and we've predominantly held our events in the UK. That's not going to happen anymore. We're moving out of the UK. Yes, we are a British promoter, but we are seeing where the audiences are. We are seeing that this is a global sport, and it needs to be global for this to be a major professional sport. So we're branching out even more so, coming into the US territory. We're really going to expand in the US. So I think that, you know, with respectfully to Fedor, I think that move naturally is going to boost that Team USA anyway. But that means that we won't come out of Europe. We're going to be everywhere. 9-ball ranking events will be everywhere, and so will our Matchroom majors. So it's just a matter of time until Team USA strengthens. I think we were always so worried about strengthening them by getting the right captain, you know, giving them rules, giving them regulations. No, it's about ranking events. Give them more professional events to play on, more of the same format, everyone working to the same Matchroom rules. That's how we will strengthen the teams.
Sounds good to me. Well, you're always, you know, super enthusiastic about this, and you know, it's a great thing about it. We are charging ahead with more events, and it's becoming more fun all the time. So, Em, thanks very much for taking the time with us today. We really appreciate it. I know you're always swamped, so we appreciate your taking the time. We look forward to seeing you soon.
No, thank you. It's a pleasure, and I can't believe how smart you look, Mike. I'm very impressed.
Thank you,
You're
Em.
making me feel very underdressed.
All right, take care. Cheers.
All right, see you later. Bye-bye.
So, you know, Matchroom obviously is looking into this, something it's kind of forced their hand a little bit to say, okay, how would we handle this situation? And it got us thinking about how similar sports or similar circumstances are handled in other sports, particularly, you know, the Olympics, Ryder Cup, which is what Mosconi is kind of based off of.
Yep.
So the Ryder Cup, as you can see, came up a couple of years ago with rule eligibility concerning one of the American golfers, and their situation is that you have to be a naturalized citizen by the time you're 18.
Right, yeah.
So that would certainly eliminate pretty much any pool player.
Yeah, only by a few years for Fedor, though.
Yes, only by a few years.
But he has to be on the 18 if that's the criteria.
Yeah. And the Olympics has a situation where
You just have to be a citizen.
you just have to be a citizen. So a citizen of two countries can play in either. And I remember an American, you know, baseball player, Anthony Rizzo, playing for Italy in the Olympics because he's got dual citizenship.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting topic. You know, Matchroom obviously can make up their own rules for what they want to do. So, you know, you would have to think about things like, you know, obviously a player wouldn't be able to flip-flop back and forth every year and jump back and forth. Would there be a time consideration put in it? Would it be a one-time move? What do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting that she didn't rule it out. One of the things I love about Matchroom is they are constantly evolving. You know, I think that's essentially what she alluded to, which is, you know, we know people are saying that, and maybe that could be a good thing, and so we're not going to rule it out. I think, though, when you look at the citizenship qualifications, right, it's 5 years once you get the green card, which is, you know, and then it's 3 years if you have a significant other that's already an American citizen.
Right.
So regardless of what you
We're
and I want,
we're 5
or
years
what
out.
Fedor will do, or what even Matchroom might consider, if it's based on citizenship, it's going to be a few years
Yeah.
before this is really a decision-making topic, I think.
By then he might be over the hill.
Right. By then, I'm hoping we got a whole new crop of Team USA, and it's not even a conversation. But
Right.
if they were to make the decision today, it sure would be nice to
It would be really
have Fedor Gorst leading off in one of those matches in
So,
the Moscow.
But the reality is everybody's got to kind of pump the brakes a little bit here because we're looking at a minimum of 5 years.
Yes.
So let's have a little bit more fun. Let's go back to the World 10 Ball Championship in a match that had social media in a frenzy. The match was between Finland's Mika Immonen and Jeff DeLuna of the Philippines.
The dust up in the desert. The dust up in the desert. Nice.
Now, both of these players have a little bit of history behind them, have some reputations. Mika is known for being very emotional, and DeLuna for pushing the envelope on rules interpretations, among other things. What you have to remember here too is that this is World 10 Ball Championship. In 10 ball events, everything's call shot. That said, there's obvious intent is accepted, in most of these matches. And in this instance, Immonen gets lined up for a combination shot, and here's how that played out.
You sounded like a bingo caller then, Jim. 5 and 9, the Brighton line.
I said 9 ball. You said 9. I said 9 ball. 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 I said 9 ball when I went down. I said 9 ball.
Well, but what Mika's doing right now is wrong.
I said 9 ball.
Well, let's go for a short break, I think.
Yeah, and you know what?
Get back to your seat. I can't believe you're trying to play so bad, man. Just get back to your seat. Let's have a seat. Just shout. Or what they shouting.
Mika, how you doing? So the social media response was wild. Many people contesting whether or not the shot should have been called or should have been given. Others arguing about whose behavior was worse, Mika's or DeLuna's. No matter how you weighed in, though, it was the event's viral moment.
Yeah, absolutely. My first thought, Mike, to be honest, for all of you over the last 20 years, APAers that have asked me, why doesn't APA go to call shot or call pocket? You just saw it play out right there in Las Vegas. Can you imagine that scenario happening in your local pool room or bar, on these thousands of league matches a night? So, the only instance we're calling a pocket, we're clearly marking it with a pocket marker and 8 ball. But, the other really interesting thing about it to me, Mike, is the impact technology had on making that a controversy, right? If you go back 10, 15 years, a lot of people probably don't even see that match, right? You didn't have the live streaming of the matches that you had back then. I personally was not watching the match when it happened. I happened to be scrolling Facebook, and I'm friends with a number of different players and that kind of thing, and I started seeing people talking about what was going on. So then I jump online and I'm finding the match, and sure enough, you see this controversy. So there's this social media component of letting people know. People are now discussing it. And people kind of weighing in on who was right and who was wrong, and then you've got the replay component. As an organization like APA that runs tournaments and live streams, I found that part fascinating, and good on Predator for getting the call right. Having the technology and going back. That's one of the big things in sports is I always believe if you can get the call right, you should get it right, and they certainly did that. As far as the competitors themselves, again, I played a lot of baseball, and in a high, intense match or battle or whatever it is, especially in the professional ranks, thousands of dollars on the line. I think that was on the hill. Mika was on the hill. I don't necessarily blame either of them. It's a high intensity moment. The referee interjects with what ultimately was not the correct call, and was later reversed. But for Mika, he's trying to run out. He believes the match is over, and suddenly something changes that was not within his power. From DeLuna's standpoint, he probably figures the match is over too. He's probably ready to unscrew his cue, and suddenly he hears foul, and so for him to jump up, I don't know. I can understand that too. Yeah. So I didn't necessarily fault either one of them. I know it led to a little bit of a confrontation, but if you look at in the grand scheme of sports and some of the things you have to see happen in professional sports, that was pretty mild overall, I think.
And it was, and that's one of my takeaways from it was that social media, part of it blew up with this, this is why pool doesn't get sponsorship because of, actions like this, and everybody should be like Francisco Sanchez Ruiz.
Let's tell that to the NHL or the NBA, where you see
100%.
the Dukes come out.
And just from, white hats and black hats and people you want to root for and people you want to root against, I love the emotion coming out of players in these events. I love that they take things personally, they take things seriously. They're putting it all on the line for this, and they're going to react that way sometimes. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, it got a lot of views for pool in a very short period of time from people who may not have ever watched a pool match. So
we're talking about it a month later. So
we are talking about it a month later. So it was all pretty entertaining to me overall.
Yeah, and like to hear from the players to see kind of now that they've had some time to calm down and figure, reassess the situation, kind of what they'd be saying about it now.
Yeah. Well, everybody's had a chance to settle down since that happened. So we thought it might be fun to bring Mika Immonen in and get his critique on the situation. Mika, how you doing?
Good, Mike. How are you?
Good. We've had a chance to look at the video of the infamous DeLuna match at the World 10 Ball, a video that I'm sure you've seen a few times by now. So we wanted to, talk to you a little bit about it. We've all given our opinions and thoughts on it, but ringside in the heat of the moment, tell me about what you saw happening. I mean, things like this usually have a little bit of a backstory. Do you have history with Jeff?
Not really that much. Not, we play on even we have the same sponsor, Mez Q's, and I've been friendly with him, but he's sometimes he's a tough competitor, and maybe some of his antics when he plays is not like super on par with what I think is cool, but usually I don't have a really real problem with him. But
so in that instance, the foul was actually called by the referee, and then Jeff jumped out of his chair. How did it escalate with him?
Yeah, I'd like to compare. I would like to compare this to, like, let's say I call a push and I push the ball into a wide open area and doesn't hit anything, and the referee calls a foul. It's pretty much the same case. And if your opponent doesn't give you the courtesy that he knows what you tried.
Right.
And I did call it, and then the reason why it's so hard to hear me call it is because Jim White and Mark White are talking over the other audio from the other room. They're not even in the same room. So they're just blabbering on, what I should do or what I might try and do. And you can't hear me. And the camera work is not, they're not really in my face when I'm like about to call the shot.
Right.
And the referee fell asleep in the situation. And now I'm getting double teamed by the referee, and the Luna jumps out of his seat, sees an opportunity, but I don't think it was really cool of him to react that fast,
And then he kept it going. On social media, it seemed like the responses were pretty split on whether you really needed to call it or intent versus calling everything is such a rule. But they both, all social media kind of came down pretty hard on both of you for the way you acted and the way you responded to each other. Do you think, looking back on it, did you handle it poorly, or do you think that this is the way I am?
Looking back, I do regret kind of shouting like yes in his face. That was just kind of like something that was because there was a few instances in even in that match, I had to tell him to stop moving behind my shot. So he was like brushing his hair, or he was just, you know, fixing his tip like very loudly while I'm getting ready to break, or he wouldn't sit down while I'm already addressing the table.
Yeah.
So it was a few moments that was like, and then that was the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
And I got like super heated, and I was feeling the heat because I'm supposed to close out the game.
Right.
And then this like weird thing happens, and I don't know. I just I'm human, and I've played thousands of matches, and that has never happened. And that time there was an outburst, and
Well,
I felt like in the moment it was justified.
yeah.
And of course, it's not. It wasn't cool, but
Well, you learned to have a little bit of fun with it. I saw your April Fool's post here, which showed you offering a master class on match decorum, and which was a great thing. How many people signed up, and how many people took it seriously?
there's a few people that, like, from the comments I could see that they weren't really getting the joke, but then that's the joke is on them. Then it was perfectly executed. But then most of the people were just having, a good laugh about it, and I also I gotta make fun of myself, because the whole idea is that I'm, okay, I lost my cool in that match, and then I might as well play a little April Fool's joke about it.
Well, give me a little hand gesture lesson.
I mean, and I wasn't really like my favorite is the where I like run out like a position, and I'm like.
Well, yeah, you could give a lot of
gesturing. I was gesturing a lot in that moment, the heat of the moment, even like when I Jeff, you go back to your seat.
Well, I also did enjoy the way you emphatically called every shot after that. I mean, there was nobody in most of the state of Nevada who didn't know what ball you were shooting at the next shot.
I wanted to make sure that they both know what I'm trying to do after that, because if there was any confusion from the earlier situation, and I'm really like, my heart was beating so fast, and I was under a lot of pressure, because it wasn't, listen, I felt like in that situation, there was no winners.
Yeah.
The referee lost, Jeffrey lost, I lost, and I'm just trying to get the job done,
Finish the match,
walk away. Yeah. And and then some people were saying, "Oh, you're such an ass. You didn't even shake his hand." He wasn't going to shake my hand either. We knew we weren't going to shake each other's hands.
Right.
There was no confusion about that.
Yeah. Well, that's sports. I mean, everybody, every match isn't going to be, perfect sportsmanship, and it's part of the fun of sports, I think. Eventually, you did win the match. So is that proof in the end that you were right?
Pardon?
Was that proof in the end that you were right?
Well, like the commentators said, that it was like, I probably played better that match, and it was a just result. But it's just a shame that it had to end like that, because up until then there was some mistakes, but it was pretty high quality, and I felt like I deserved to win, and I was just running out a simple rack, and then there was what's the confusion?
Well,
I was gonna get robbed if I didn't stand up for my rights there, and in my eyes there was no other way it should have ended, and I just. The way I really overemphasized the remaining balls was just to get a little bit of pressure off my chest too, but just make I'm also just like it's the whole situation is a laughing matter already.
Yeah. Well, it certainly got a lot of views and elicited a lot of discussion, and we're glad that everybody came out of it unscathed for the most part, and we'll all still meet up at the next tournament and have good competition, right?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I hope Jeffrey and I can shake hands and just move on, and we hope to make the game famous for other reasons, really,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's nice to get notoriety, but
Only of a certain kind. Yeah, not
Yeah.
too much. Yeah. So, well, we appreciate you being a good sport about it and coming on here with us and talking about it. And I look forward to seeing you in the upcoming tournaments. You're always a lot of fun to watch. You've been playing great pool in the last year or so. So continued success to you.
thank you, Mike. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to explain myself.
Okay, we'll see you soon.
See you.
It's good to hear Mika's take on it a couple weeks after the fact, and it sounds like all's well that ends well. The worst thing that happened there is there was no handshake, and
Right.
ultimately Mika wins the match, which is probably what should have happened, and so we move on to the next event. And it sounds like if he could have done some things differently, maybe he would have.
Right.
But like you said, at the end of the day, it's pretty minor controversy
Yes.
in terms of professional sports. But before we move on, let's jump back over to Becky in the social media center just to get some final thoughts from the public on what they thought of the desert dust up there in Las Vegas.
Yeah, so like you guys said, there have been a lot of comments on social media about this match. So I thought that I'd pull a couple of those for you guys that kind of go along with what you guys have been talking about today. The first one is from Tracy T. And she says, controversy is good in any sport. It gets people's attention. So right along with what you guys have been talking about. And then the second one I've got here is from Keegan M. He says, someone needs to create a Mika Immonen pocket marker.
Well, we've got good news for Keegan M. His dreams are coming true because we have patented right away the Mika Immonen bobblehead pocket marker. So when you go to league night or to your next professional tournament, you can stick it right there on the side pocket, and no confusion amongst the referees with the Mika Immonen pocket marker. So we'll make sure Mika gets his royalties out of that. Maybe kick a little to DeLuna too, since he played a big part in the desert dust up. So again, all's well that ends well.
I don't know if I could shoot at the pocket that's got that bobblehead standing on it. Never a dull moment in professional pool, that's for sure. Before we sign off, let's take a look at the current WPA and Matchroom 9-ball rankings and also the Mosconi Cup current point list. Francisco Sanchez Ruiz is your number one player in the world in the men's right now, and Cheyu Chow is number one woman in the world right now. In the Matchroom 9-ball rankings, which is a 2-year rolling points total, Francisco Sanchez Ruiz leads that as well, followed by Shane Van Boening. As far as Mosconi Cup, top 3 players for each team automatically get spots in 2023. You see Skylar Woodward, Shane Van Boening at the top for the Americans. But there may be significant changes to those ranking lists, as the list of upcoming events indicates. There'll be 3 Matchroom 9-ball ranking events in April, as well as the Predator Wisconsin Open in mid-May. An event that will feature both open and women's tournaments. That's going to button it up for us this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, may all your shots be hangers, and we'll see you again soon on Billiards Digest Live.